I'd like to propose that this conference, as a conference, we do something concrete in the fight for better conditions in schools. And as this, I propose that we have a one-day ban on school uniforms throughout the country.
This conference is different. The average age of the delegates is only 16. The organisers are schoolboys, the latest breed of militants.
All you're asking the people to do in the schools is not to wear their school uniforms for one day.
Their aim is a national campaign against uniforms, beating, exams and teaching methods in their own grammar and secondary schools.
Our general aims are to introduce the school council, to increase student staff control of schools. The idea is that the school council will be autonomous and would be in charge of the effective running of the school. General idea is to make schools a place where people want to learn instead of a place where they're indoctrinated.
Tonight, World in Action looks at the prospects of a new school of thought.
Well, people are continuing to be processed and programmed for, first of all, O-levels, then A-levels, if they stay on that long. The idea is to turn out people who will fit a mould, who will fit into a specific job, rather than teaching people to be individuals. Enforced conformity on a nation.
Well, this is what we would like to see. A great deal more cooperation between the pupil and the teacher, and the pupil and the teacher being on the same level.
Hi Tim. Hi Lawrence. Hi Guy.
At this school, teachers and pupils are on an equal footing. They address each other by their Christian names. This is the end of evening assembly at Bedales, a private boarding school in Hampshire. The pupil says that the handshake helps to clear the air if there's been an argument during the day. What the state students are demanding has long been available at Bedales for £600 a year. There is no corporal punishment, no set impositions. Pupils are free to wear what they like. What rules exist have been agreed upon both by staff and pupils. Teaching methods are advanced. They have abolished school exams and a system of marks, yet they still achieve a high proportion of university places.
I think explain just for those who are new this term, what we normally do, we run through the points that were raised at the last meeting and see if action has been taken or still see if we need to follow anything up.
This is how decisions affecting the running of the school are made. A free forum is held regularly between the headmaster and any of the pupils who wish to discuss an issue. A decision is made by the majority. Here the subject is meal arrangement.
Patricia, would you like to raise something about lunch places, which the suggestion is that they should be every other week, is that right?
Well, there are 9 weeks this term, and 2 people have to do it 9 times. And I thought perhaps if it could be done every other week, then they'd be sure of being able to get it done in time, for one thing. It would take a bit of the burden off them. I don't know what anybody else thinks about it.
What do some of the young ones feel about this? That the idea of Sasha, what do you think about the idea of changing places every week rather than every fortnight for lunch?
Well, sometimes if you get landed on a table with no one in your block, it's just not much fun. you never get any food, really.
One wants to feel that everyone in the school has a sense of participating in the life of the community. I would feel that one has been able to get fairly far along the road in this respect. If you are trying to create a feeling of responsibility towards the community, this cannot be effective unless they feel a real part of this community.
Nigel Kershaw is the head boy.
Why was the prefect system abolished?
I think a number of reasons. The first being that we felt that the system was out of date. Previously there had been 12 prefects and a block of 40, and this, I think, by becoming a prefect you're artificially raised from the rest of the block in terms with other people. You had all the responsibilities put on you, and the rest of the block were left without any responsibility at all. and the tendency was to opt out of the system and not to take any active part in it.
These students have all had the chance to compare their previous experience of ordinary schools with the discipline they now have at Bedales.
And the discipline is really self-imposed on what seems reasonable to a society. And you do something which makes life easier for the rest of society. And so, whenever you tell somebody not to do something, the first question they fire back at you is, why shouldn't you? And you must be able to give a reason.
All the older pupils take turns as counsellors, looking after the younger children.
Thanks. And if you can avoid the image of authority bearing down on the smaller children, then this, I think, will create an atmosphere where you don't look up to the people in the top form as the wielders of this authority, but you look up to them as people who are also sharing part of the society in which you're living.
Hey, Thomas. Thomas, which school are you supposed to be in?
I'm in this one.
Oh, come on, tell me another one. Well, which are you supposed to be in? Go on, go on. Get out.
Oh, well, let me finish this.
No, go on, go now.
I'll take this.
You're at Greyfriars, a rosy-cheeked boy of 14, in posh tailor-made clothes, sitting down to tea in your study on the remove passage, after an exciting game of football, which was won by an odd goal in the last half minute.
A lesson in progress on a George Orwell essay on comics. Classes like this quickly turn into a free discussion.
The king is on his throne, and a pound is worth a pound. Over in Europe, the comic foreigners are jabbering and gesticulating. Everything is safe, solid, and unquestionable. Okay, I want one of you read, Catherine.
I read any comics you read.
Yeah, all right, okay. Well, what was the last one you read? Do you remember on this one?
I think it's something like Hotspur or something.
I think the main thing's in the lessons, really, where you find that the lessons take the form of a discussion rather than a lecture. The staff don't sort of stand out at the front and talk at you. You sit and everyone joins in.
Does it strike some of you girls that the things that are much prized in these boys' comics are really pretty laughable? I mean, do you think it's funny, all these people going Powie and Zap and things like this? Well, hey, you see, the interesting thing is that although, you boys were laughing then too, but really you're taken pretty seriously when you're reading them. Your eyes are agog, you're squibbling on, you follow every line, you're not going to miss a single R as somebody gets knocked over the cliff by a British sergeant.
The headmaster.
I'm sure that it is perfectly possible to take off a great deal of the pressures that go along with examinations. Partly by not emphasizing the examination system as such, not having such things as form orders, whereby you get people very much trying to achieve things just for the sake of beating others, or fearful that they're going to be beaten by others, but doing better for the sake of self-achievement.
How would you apply the principles of Bedales to a state school?
I think as far as the staff-pupil cooperation goes, you've got to have the staff meeting the pupils in an out-of-lesson sort of atmosphere.
Which we do here by having fairly regular meetings with the staff, having at homes with all the housemasters
You couldn't quite do that,
regularly.
but having staff running various societies, even if the actual aims of the societies didn't come off, the meeting is what matters.
Also, I think it makes a great difference in calling staff by their Christian names, because the moment you call, it sounds just a little thing, but the moment you call somebody by their Christian name, sort of the relationship changes completely.
And I think if you can try and extend, in state schools, try and extend the curriculum, so it isn't just lessons and more lessons, I think then this would change the character of education.
Because an institution that one solely does work at is obviously going to have a completely different character from one where you live all the time, and you do many different things in as well as work.
It's a question of time though, isn't it?
Yes.
Then I'm quite sure that we have to try to be ready to accept change inside and also to create change outside.
There's only one formal assembly a week at Bedales. It's on a Sunday evening, but it's far from the usual church service, and the themes are anything but traditional.
Well, things haven't gone nearly far enough. We only have to lend half an ear to the warning bells that have been ringing out from all over the world, from places as far apart as Chicago and Prague, Rhodesia and the Middle East, Biafra and Londonderry. That's all we've got to do to see the necessity for radical alterations.
It's not difficult to be radical about the world when £600 a year keeps it away from you. In more everyday schools, any alteration can be a problem. Radical changes can mean chaos. Wandsworth Comprehensive School, South London. 1,900 boys from widely different backgrounds, including slum clearance areas of Battersea. Here there are school uniforms and corporal punishment. The headmaster is trying one experiment, a school's council of 36 boys, but he insists on approving all the decisions. It's a school such as this that the ideas of the schoolboy reformists have to be tested. Weldon Action took some of the speakers from the Reformers Conference to face the reality of Wandsworth. This is Roger Davis, age 17, secretary and founder of the London Free Schools campaign.
Involved, and I say about a third of the people involved at the moment are teachers or student teachers.
Andrew Bevan, age 16, of the Union of Progressive Students from Swansea.
From the ages of 13 to 19, this is where the bulk of people are concentrated. The sixth form naturally are most active, but there is a large volume of support from fourth and fifth formers in particular.
Michael Wolfe is a 19-year-old Czech. He is secretary of the North London Schools Action Union.
The abolition of all exams in their present form. Point number 5. The abolition of corporal and all arbitrary forms of punishment and of the prefect system.
Confronting the group of 6 were the headmaster and members of the staff and pupils of Wandsworth Comprehensive. The first reform discussed school uniforms.
Individuality still seems to be a lost cause. This stamping down really on the individual spirit and personality of the pupil is reflected in the school system in lots of subtle ways, but the most blatant and physical way that this is expressed really is the dressing up of boys in a school uniform, dressing them up as a uniform mass, so that with the intention really, in my opinion, of hoping to foster in them a mass mind, a mind which is a mind of acceptance rather than criticism.
Have you ever thought of the positive value of a school uniform? You see, in an area like this, and I dare say the same applies in the areas from which you come, boys come from a cross-section of different social backgrounds. The result is that, supposing there were no common standard of dress, obviously some would be able to come in very expensive kinds of suits, others would have to come in very much less expensive, considerably less sartorial value. And our point in a school uniform is not the snob point that you're trying to make. Rather, it is the point of everybody being, in a way, levelled so that no distinctions are made simply on the grounds of economic differences, for example.
The point about education, the question we must ask is it an education or is it a course of instruction? Now, to my mind, there's a big difference between these two things, because education means putting the onus of learning and discovering and criticism upon the individual. Now, this emphasis does not exist in education today.
Next, the reformers put forward their proposals for revising school discipline.
When you give one or two people or a minority of people the power to inflict pain in the word of justice, the name of justice, and punishment on other people without going into the reasons behind it, when detentions, when impositions are handed out to keep a person quiet rather than find out why they did the thing they did, then this is where it's not so much discipline, but more repression.
Well, do you encourage self-responsibility by beating the person?
No, of course you don't. Nobody.
I don't think anyone
even beats anyone. No one beats anybody. What? You're talking about Tom Brown's school days, old chap.
No, we're talking about the present education.
Not to my knowledge.
Can I put this situation from the point of view of an ordinary teacher without very great responsibility? But if I'm presented with a class of boys, and my aim is to educate them, and to get them to think about issues and to think about them properly. But unless there is a certain level of cooperativeness and discipline within a classroom, I'm never able to present my information and to run my lesson.
The teacher is a valuable member of the school community with special experience and special training. He is there to teach. The discipline should be in the hands of the pupils. The pupils must learn to accept these responsibilities of controlling the environment for themselves, because when they leave school they are going to have to do this kind of thing in society, and we would hope they can do it far better than is the case with the majority of school leavers at the moment, who leave school socially incompetent.
When you get young people who occasionally in this school have physically assaulted a member of staff, there is not really time then to sit around in a committee and bring into play one's ideals, which seem so wonderful, as long as one is only talking.
Could you tell me whether pupils are beaten in this school, and if so, how often and for what reasons and by whom?
Well, I can certainly tell you this. There is an ultimate deterrent in the school, corporal punishment. It is the ultimate deterrent. The number of times it is used in any one school year is minimal. The number of times, in fact, it's ever been used is minimal.
How much is minimal?
Well, as small as possible. The number of people who have the power delegated to them to use it is, again, very limited. It amounts to the housemasters and 2 senior members of staff, the senior housemaster and the deputy headmaster. The number of times that they use it during the course of a year is practically nil. Mr. Pike, again, will tell you from his own experience.
Can I just answer Mr. Pike's point here? You seem to, I think, get the impression that we want to do away with discipline completely. But what we really want to do is put the discipline in the hands of the boys. Because if you get a disciplinary action coming from your own level, I think it's going to be far more effective than a punishment coming from somebody who's way above your level.
At the moment, I am dealing with boys in my set and in the forms that I teach who come from homes where there is no formal authority pattern whatsoever. Now put these boys into the situation of a classroom, and they create for me an immediate problem. And they're not serious discipline problems. They're not problems which need to be resolved by beatings or by detentions or anything. Normally the weight of my personality is capable of allowing me to construct a situation in which I can teach. I'm not trying to repress. I'm trying to allow these lads to express themselves. But if you have 30 talking at once, no one is heard.
Is it the effects of your own personality, the cloak of authority which you hide behind?
I assure you that. All right, you can. No,
I can answer that one. It's the effect of his own personality.
Because, quite honestly, there are other people in exactly the same position as myself who have come onto this staff with the same cloak of authority, who have literally been crucified as people by certain boys in this school.
Our major proposal is that corporal punishment must be scrapped to remove the threat of physical violence, to institute an air of freedom. Now the point is, undoubtedly at first this air of freedom is going to be abused, but we must take this risk, we must pay the price for this, because the rewards, as soon as the new system becomes accepted and used, I think will be tremendous. Now there are difficulties, obviously. We have to replace repression with something else. Perhaps we could try a greater degree of understanding by emphasizing corrective counselling, this kind of thing. Joint counselling with staff members and student representatives, making the attempt, as Roger earlier suggested, to find out the basic grievances, acting upon these where possible, and not using punishment, but trying to use some reasoning.
First of all, you're using a lot of emotive words which puts things out of perspective. When you talk about physical violence, we don't understand that phrase in the sense of corporal punishment. There's no physical violence about this. There is not. Physical violence means an entirely different thing from corporal punishment.
This is all, it is respectable.
No.
Finally, the two groups discussed democratic control by a schools council.
Most people who go to the school's council, which is run purely by the boys, I have to point out, consider that the thing is so badly organised and so badly run that the whole thing is fatuous and they don't want to go. And they would gladly go if it was run by staff.
You implied that as the school council is not effective because boys do not take interest in the school. Well, this is a totally farcical suggestion that this is what determines the attitude towards the running of the school or the school council. The sole determining factor is whether the school council has any executive powers. If there's a system of a benevolent despot where the boys can go and chat twice a term and then submit their ideas to whatever it is, the housemaster or the headmaster, who then kindly rejects them and on occasion allows something to pass through. Obviously boys will think that this is just a big joke and will not... But there's no initiative.
Do you think there's some contempt to zealot? Can I come in now? I think a couple of issues need to be raised very carefully here. In terms of executive power, this can only go alongside responsibility. Yeah. And I think you must realise this. You can't opt out of this.
No.
If you are going to give executive power to the school council, they must also be responsible. We are not an isolated unit. We are part of an educational system called the London Educational Authority. Now, you know, I have to speak on behalf of the head here. He is responsible to that authority. You know that Duane at Rising Hill fell very rapidly foul of that authority. Now, if the school council has executive power, they must bear some of the responsibility for what comes through, and you know, and therefore a certain amount of the responsibility must be taken away from the head.
You've told us that there's no repression in this school. Now, supposing the boys were to put forward or accept or push forward some scheme for effective participation and involvement in their school environment by means of a union or action campaign of some kind, what would the reaction of headmaster and staff to this be?
Well, now let's be clear what precisely you mean. A union with effective involvement. This doesn't mean, because no union just takes over the organisation and runs it the way they want to. This is a democracy. A school is a democracy just as society is a democracy. It may be wrong in your eyes, but the fact remains it is a democracy, as you will soon find out if you go to certain other countries. Now, they would, therefore, if there were a union suggested, as there might well be in the school, it would be a properly democratic institution. The fact remains, however, that an ultimate person must be there to make the final decision. I cannot abrogate that duty, nor would I wish to.
New ideas arouse opposition. In the morning, discussions at the London conference were dominated by left-wing undergraduates. In the afternoon, the meeting was threatened by violent right-wing extremists.
6 to 10 people outside who decided they're ratepayers. Now, they decided that we are dirty communists, that we have no right to hold a meeting here.
If you want trouble, you can always have trouble. We haven't come to bring it here. We'll give you constructive criticism.
Now, look.
Yes, you'll get constructive criticism. The rebel you've got here are not capable of anything constructive.
Right. I'm now asked to take a vote. The National Front and others, people present, be asked to leave. And if they not leave, then the police will be called to rejection. Now I'm calling on those in favour of that. I'm now calling on those against. And that is clearly carried. Would people be absolutely quiet? And please, whatever you do, I should now ask you not to engage in any fisticuffs of any sort. Gentlemen, I'm asked by this meeting that you leave. Otherwise, the meeting is decided the police will be called.
To the schoolboys' credit, there was no violence, but invaded by the thugs of the right wing and the extremists of the left, the ideas of the schoolboy reformers were nearly throttled at birth. Their main problem may be that they've started too late. It may no longer be possible to talk simply of getting rid of school uniforms and discipline without bringing the world down around your ears. But it seems a pity that the only testing ground for some interesting ideas is in the countryside of Hampshire.
That's Roger. Good night. That's Bird.
activity.